Hey there, Chad here for the AI Content Dojo. In just a moment, I'm going to showcase an article that I wrote using Shortly AI. And I want to start, though, with a reminder about the Shortly Compendium, which is the thing that I released yesterday, where it's a one stop shop for basically learning how to do almost anything with Shortly AI. And I just wanted to real quick show you the table of contents here because it's been growing since yesterday, too, where you're going to learn how to do things such as like tone and voice, context, granular controls. I'm over here on the right side, by the way, over here under the table of contents here. And, how to ask for what you want, how to do the dance with the AI so that you get really good, high quality content out of it. In fact, the article that I'm about to show you after this is an example of me doing the dance. I mean, actually, I wrote that article before I discovered all of these other things that you can do with Shortly. But also things like the shortcuts, like how you can just work fast using the keyboard shortcuts. And then I move into things like writing accomplishments or acronyms, add copy, add headlines, IDA for marketing copy, answers, article briefs, before after bridge, calls to action, conclusions. It's been in there forever and Shortly. Feature benefits, introductions to sections and articles and everything. Jokes, listicles, marketing copy, meta descriptions, outlines. Wow, I can't even read anymore now. Let me see if I can get this thing to zoom or to scroll down here a little bit because it's so long. There's so much stuff in here that it's kind of mind-boggling almost. So meta descriptions, outlines, persuasive bullets, poems, product descriptions, questions, rewording your stuff, summarizing things, taglines, topic ideas, unique value propositions, and all kinds of video things too, like descriptions and scripts and hooks and titles and stuff. And that's just scratching the surface with Shortly because all you got to do is ask for things. Let me show you the acronyms. I added this today because somebody in the AI Content Dojo Facebook group mentioned this, and it's really cool. It's a way to kind of, if you wanted to get an acronym, you can just ask Shortly to give you a word that starts with a letter. So, for instance, let's say you have a list that says focus, action, success, and you want it to say fast, right? Just like this. And you're looking for a word that fits that starts with the letter T. Well, you can ask Shortly, just say finish the list with a single word starting with a T. Natural language, you just ask, like as if you turned to your assistant and said, please finish the list of this with, I can't think of anything right now. Please just give me one word, and it does it. And it came back with transformation, which I think fits that pretty darn good. And by the way, if Shortly doesn't give you a word that starts with T on the first try, just redo it. Sometimes it doesn't, but it'll catch on after that. And Harry from the group, he's the one who found this and shared it with everybody to so I could put it into the compendium so everyone could learn. Okay, now for the article I want to show you. It's called the Perfect Article Checklist, and what's special about this article is from time to time I get somebody who will ask me like, hey, these AI tools, they look pretty cool on the surface, but can you give me an example of something that's created with the AI? Now, I show them this because this is probably the one that I'm the most proud of, and it's also exceptionally helpful for people, I think. And it shows cases that you can create articles that are fairly lengthy and answer the reader's intent very well, provides really good information, and doesn't have to be fluffy. And a lot of AIs will create sort of fluffy content. Basically words that kind of go on to kind of fill up, a word count, but don't really sort of add to the real meat of the article. And so I just want to go through this article real quick. At this point, like when I first wrote the article, I would say it was probably about 50-50, me and the AI. I did the dance. I would write half the sentence and the AI would finish the other half. I mean, maybe even going so far as maybe 40% me, 60% AI. And then by the time I was completely done with the article after editing and everything, say more like 50, 50, yeah, maybe like 60-40 me and 40% AI at the end. And like I said, this was back before I learned all the real neat tricks that I can do with Shortly to get even more spot on content. So you can probably get it to be more around 40% you, 60% AI after editing even. But here's what I want to talk about. And maybe you'll get a little bit of information from this article at the same time. But as I go through this, I want you to remember that this is an example of how you can write quickly. I did this article in probably, I want to say maybe an hour and 20 minutes or so from start to finish with editing and everything. And I don't remember the exact word count, but you'll see it's fairly long and it goes through quite a bit. So here we go, the perfect article checklist. So you should start with a great topic that people want to read. I really focus on this part right here, right? Want to read. Because, I mean, that sounds simple, doesn't it? It's like, what? I mean, of course you're going to write something that people want to read. But you'd be surprised at how difficult it is for you to kind of consider that. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, you might just sort of jump in and start writing something because it seems like a cool topic to write about, but never really take the time to sort of stop and think, is this really something that somebody would either search for or really actually like have any real desire to read, or if you're making a video to watch? So I have a website that's called Tokyo Spark, and you write where I write about mostly about like things to eat and places to go in Tokyo. And yakiniku it means grilled meat in Japan. It's probably one of the best meals that you could possibly have in this country. It's awesome. But you could choose to write about what yakiniku is, right? Like, what is it? You know, you write probably a really great informative piece about what yakiniku is, but guess what? They probably, as a reader, don't really want to go like full in depth about what yakiniku is, you know, like which cows it comes from for the best Wagyu, you know, experience and all that kind of stuff. Maybe a few people will, but chances are what you're probably wanting to write about is wonderful experiences that people can have at yakiniku restaurants when they're visiting Tokyo or something, you know, and maybe where to go to get the best ones, right? And it's just one of those things that's really easy to kind of get trapped in that whole concept of, you know, you're just going at it to just write a really good article, and it's not something that people really want to read. And so I kind of frame it too is, you know, for instance, this website, like the whole reason that you're even here, on either you're on on AI Content Dojo now, or you're on the YouTube channel listening to this or watching this. It's really about framing your topic. You know, why are you reading this or listening to this right now? It's because, you know, there's something about it that you want to learn about, right? And you know, maybe there's not another good resource for it, or this is the best resource for it. As long as I can frame it that way and make it something that people want to read and why like you want to read or watch this, then that's a good start. That's where you start from the first thing in this checklist. Then you're going to want to have a good hook, you know, that kind of pulls the reader in. You know, this is almost as critical as the, you know, the desire to want to read the article, which is kind of the first impression that somebody would get from the title. And you know, the hook is kind of the thing. You know, like maybe some kind of like paragraph right at the beginning of your article. You know, for example, at one point in one of my articles, I had for the small entrepreneurs, the side hustlers, the writers, bloggers, SEOs, this AI assisted content workflow will give you content creation superpowers. That's kind of a hook, because if you came here to gain these content creation superpowers, then this hook is probably going to, you know, pull you in, make you kind of maybe pique your interest a little bit and make you kind of want to go further in the article. Now, You also want to focus on one central point. You don't want your article to have 2 or 3 or 4 tangential points, because then you're going to start, well, for one, you might start to confuse your reader, but you also might confuse Google. So if Google thinks that your article is about 3 or 4 different things instead of one good solid topic, there's a chance that you might dilute your rank. You might not rank for any of them instead of ranking really well for that one point that you were trying to focus on. You should be well researched and thoroughly answer the intent of the reader. That means when you write that article or you craft that video, your content has a reason for existing, right? It's because you want somebody to either read it or watch your content. And when they come, they're coming for a reason, right? They're probably either searching in Google or searching in YouTube or something. And when Google believes that your content is the best and it shows it to that reader expects something, right? That's what intent means. If they search for a question, they want your answer. Or if they search for a product or a service, they want your product or service. That means your article or your video shouldn't just go on and on about other things without answering their question or their needs quickly. Prove to them quickly that you have what they want, and then give it to them. And then when you're going through your writing, you're going to need to back up claims with facts, studies, stories, or examples. If you make a bold claim in your article, then you should probably, back it up with something. In a great article, the perfect article will do this. It's sort of like as you go through and you say, "Oh, this is the best yakiniku restaurant," and you stop there. I mean, thanks, I guess. The reader might be thinking, but why is it the best? Show me more. Back that up. And that could just be as simple as citation to another place that talks about it more in depth or something. But maybe a story about you having been there would be a great example of something for like a restaurant, maybe a restaurant review that you write about it. But anyways, if you make a claim, back it up. You're going to want to have clear takeaways for the reader to implement. Have some compassion for that reader because they're going there, they're learning from you. If you can give them something that they can take with them and, it solves their problem and they can share it with friends and, family and whoever, it'll be a better article for them overall. You don't want to shroud that takeaway, in a fluffy, overdressed article that forces the reader to kind of like study through all of your content like there's going to be an exam on it. Don't do that. If you have something to teach, just give it to them, and they'll be much better fans of yours overall, and probably eventually someday come back if your topic is something that they're interested in. You're going to want to have beautiful use of images and screenshots, video, the use of color, typography, white space. And what I mean most of the time when I say beautiful in this case, I just mean like careful or thoughtful. Every photo and color and the spacing and the font that you use, you're using it intentionally. You want to have enough space to where, people can read the stuff without straining their eyes and things like that. And of course, this is something that will happen more in the publishing phase. This is like after your article is done, edited, and SEO optimized. But it's something to always think about for the perfect article. And it kind of flows into this where, you want your article to be easy to skim, right? I mean, not only easy to skim, but also easy to read. So that means you're going to want to have some short conversational sentences. A lot of times less is more with design, and the human eye can process more information at a glance. When the content is well crafted, it's got good white space, a good font for reading, depending on the medium that they're reading on. And you should write your good subheadings or the H2s and the H3s inside of your article. Make them almost as if they're standalone headlines themselves, because in the future, I think there was a delay on this, or they might have already rolled it out by now, but Google is indexing passages from articles, and there's a good chance that those subheadings might mean a little bit more down the road in search results. So careful use of bolds, italics, some color like you see right here in this sort of highlighting and stuff like that. Even this section being sectioned off, this whole section being sectioned off with this gradient background helps the reader flow, or get not trapped, but kind of get pause for a moment when they're scrolling quickly through your article, and stress sort of the important parts for them to catch. You're also going to want to create some flow, with some transitions between the thoughts, between your sections, basically. It's kind of an important part. A lot of people overlook this. You want your reader to flow from section to section. And that just really means just adding a sentence or two that just sort of is like, and in the next section, we're going to talk about, and just have things like that to kind of pull the reader through your content. Interactive elements that communicate with the reader. You might have forms or different things like that, some calls to action, things that kind of pull the reader into doing something inside of your content. And it's just an engagement thing. It's just how the brain works. And when you engage with something, you're more apt to remember it. And that's great when you want your reader to remember your content and maybe come back to visit you again in the future. Now, SEO optimization is something that it's a little bit of hit or miss for me. Obviously, most of your traffic is going to come from search engines, probably. It's not always the case, but if you have a website that's, doing well and it's got enough age to where, search is kind of a thing for you, search engines are probably going to be the most where you get your traffic the most from. And so, you want your articles to be unique. Only you have it, really. You're probably going to be writing about something that somebody else has written about somewhere in the world at some point in time. But if you can do that much better, with your own custom research and just better formatting, better presentation, maybe give the answer more quickly than the others, then you'll do well. But I also think that you should have something like maybe phrase and what's the Surf for SEO or something like that, where you can just kind of pop your content into it, do just a little bit of maybe optimizing some keywords here and there, and just making sure that you get a good score based on what those tools offer. But I wouldn't spend too much time really focusing on it. The main thing you should focus on is making sure that your article is the best that it can be for the person who's coming to read it. And then optimize for mobile. And this is interesting because this is something that I think a lot of people will overlook. You've got your article done, it's published, it's online. You're like, yeah, you even made it beautiful. But when you read it on mobile, maybe it's still okay, but you'll start to notice things where maybe some of the paragraphs are a little long, but they're not that long when viewed on a desktop, right? Because you got enough space. But when viewed on a phone or a tablet, even sometimes, the paragraphs look a little long, and so I would say that if you really are interested in making the best experience, then mobile content or mobile readers are probably going to be quite a bit of your traffic. And so if you take your phone and just edit your article just right there from your phone and just add some line breaks, just break up some of those big paragraphs. It might look a little sparse on a desktop, but that's fine. You're going to have it's going to be a good enough experience for them, and it's going to be a much better experience for your mobile readers. So that's a better trade-off for you. And that's pretty much it. Let me zoom out here, and let me see, is that 0? This is a 4K screen. That might be a little bit too small for you. And I just wanted to show you. We just went through all of this. All of, I would say roughly at this point after editing, 40% of this is written by Shortly. And I'm not sure if you could tell. There's a lot of really good things that Shortly is capable of as far as when you do the dance, you start your sentence. And I've probably said this 20 times through the various videos I've created. But when you take the time to kind of think about how your whole sentence is going to go anyway, and you start it and you get to that point where you know that how it's going to end and hit right for me, the AI is probably going to end it close to what you thought it was going to be, and then sometimes give you more, or probably most of the time give you more to work with. And when you start editing that down, you end up with something that's better than what you would have started with or written on your own in many cases. It's really a fantastic workflow, and I highly recommend, once you get used to the dance, check out the compendium, find all these other different things that you can do, especially right here, the ask for what you want. Shortly works off of a natural language pattern. That means you just ask. If you're stuck for something and it's a specific type of content, just ask it. Just see what happens. Do a /instruct and say, please give me some headline ideas or some sub-headline ideas or whatever you're asking for. Just ask it in natural language, plain text like that, and just see what Shortly is capable of giving you in that moment and break you of you being stuck in whatever part you're at. Maybe you're writing a story. You could just say, please give me some more ideas for the next scene or something like that, and see what happens. I think you'd be really surprised at the capabilities of Shortly. And I just wanted to show you this example of what I think is a really good article using Shortly. And yeah, that's it. I hope that if you liked this, you'll like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. But if you are not in the Facebook group yet, please either go to Facebook and search for the AI Content Dojo. You can find it that way, or down below. I'll have a link to it. And thank you if you're here still listening to me talk. Thank you for hanging out with me for this long. I know your time is precious, and I appreciate you hanging out with me. And I hope to see you in the Facebook group. Until next time, take care.